Hey everybody, Roxabox90 here, back with some more Shadows of Innistrad spoilers, kicking off the week. We actually missed a couple. I realized that we're done at the end of last week, but we'll run through them pretty quickly because they shouldn't take long. First up, Eternal Vigil is 1 and 2 I for an anthem that gives non-token creatures 1+1 in vigilance. So if you remember, as this guy mentions over here, Intangible Virtue was back from the original Innistrad, and that was 1 and 1 and gave tokens. This one gives non-tokens and is a little more expensive, which makes it less crazy and a little more fair. But anthems tend to be really good. I like that it gives the vigilance factor and that includes manlands. Realize manlands are still part of the standard cycle. They are clearly encouraging some kind of green-white token strategy, especially printing Sigarda that way, or even green-white mid-range with a token base. We'll have to see where it ends up, but I think this card is pretty darn solid. Then we have Village Messenger, our goblin guide of the set. 1 for a 1/1 haste that can flip at each upkeep and becomes a 2/2 menace, which is a very powerful red 1-drop and definitely fits beautifully into a red-black, say, aggressive deck. Then we have Paranoid Parish Blade is 3 for a 3/2 Delirium. That becomes a 4/2 first strike if you have Delirium, which is pretty solid, especially for limited. 4/2 first strike is really hard to deal with, and it's very reasonably costed. Even a 3 for a 3/2, that's how I think about it. Vanilla, 3 for a 3/2 is not bad in limited. With all upside, it's solid uncommon. Gibbering Fiend is 2 for a 2/1. Enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and that's particularly good if I think that's how it works for Two-Headed Giant, where it'll hit each opponent. I think that's how it works, but even if not, it's still 2 for a 2/1 body that deals damage hitting play, and then it potentially every single turn do damage whether or not it actually connects. Very solid aggressive card for limited. The fact that it's a 1 toughness is a little frustrating because it'll make it difficult for it not to be just murdered off, but it's not bad on an aggressive curve. Magic Scribe, I thought we did this one already from before, but it's an 0/3 for 2, mills 3 when it comes into play from each opponent, and then Delirium more or less does it every single opponent's turn, which in limited is bonkers. You have a solid wall that also can mill them into oblivion. It's very, very good for limited if it functions within the deck strategy. Otherwise, it can potentially be a finisher card also, as well as also a solid blocker. Obsessive Skinner is a 1/1 for 2, comes into play with a 1/1 counter on another creature, and then Delirium. Then at each opponent's upkeep, you put a 1/1 counter. It's okay. I can see it working with the token strategy. That's what it's there for, but that's about it for limited. Then we have, I think I pulled this up, but if I didn't, I'm pretty sure it's 5, counter a spell, and investigate 3 times. Now that might be cool if first you read it, you're like, 5 for a counter spell, what? And then, oh, it investigates 3 times. Wow, that's cool. Then you realize, wait, 5 mana to counter a spell and do it? I guess, and it's rare. I guess this is for limited. I don't really see it being that great outside of it. The only place maybe would be some kind of standard control deck that you counter a spell turn 5, let's say, and then you get additional card draw going into your 6th turn. But seriously, 5 mana? What? Second Harvest is an instant for 4 that doubles tokens, which could be really good if you have a solid token strategy going, but really this is a commander blowout at instant speed for 4 mana. Very solid card. And it's for permanents, not just for lands. Not just for creatures, excuse me. Asylum Visitor. Amazing artwork, really creepy. 2 for a 3/1. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, if the player has no cards, you draw a card and lose 1 life with Madness. Why is this good? It's really good for limited. Why? Because often you end up in top deck mode. That's what happens when you guys end up running out of cards in hand because you hit turn 6, 7. And if you're both not really dead because you've been trading creatures the whole time, more or less, then it's whoever draws into more advantage fastest. This card potentially gives you every card your opponent is going to draw, you draw 2 effectively. It's insane card advantage and really solid. And it's a 3/1 for 2 vampire, which is very aggressive on the curve. Very solid, and that's probably why it's rare. Welcome to the Fold is a 4 mana take control of a creature. Toughness 2 or less, which is, it'll really depend on how many 2 or less toughness creatures there are, for limited at least. But otherwise, its madness is really potentially powerful, but seems like a double-edged sword that's more often than not going to sit in your hand. Thalia's Lieutenant is 2 for 1/1. Enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 on each other human you control. Again, go tokens. Whenever another human enters the battlefield, then it gets a 1/1. It's kind of funky. Reminds me of Elvish Vanguard from back in the day in Onslaught, and except more powerful. And I think it'll be fine. It'll be a fine, solid card for a token strategy, especially limited, maybe even constructed, depending how powerful token decks can be. Then we get this silly land card, which I think is called Corrupted Tombstone. 2 for an artifact, enters the battlefield tapped, and then you can tap, choose a card, and add 1 mana in your graveyard. Add 1 mana of that card's color to your mana pool, which is kind of fine, sure. I don't really care for the fact that it comes into play tapped. I guess if you have mid-range strategies going on, this card would be a nice way to get you from turn 2 to turn 4. But otherwise, I don't really see it doing much. And at rare, it seems kind of strange. Then we have of course, classic red card. 1 in X, deals X damage to a creature or player. It can remove indestructible, and it can exile. Really, it's just a blaze effect for limited. That's really the main place I see this card doing anything. Engulf the Shore is 4. Instant bounce all creatures to their owner's hands. Toughness less than or equal to the number of islands you control. Seems very strong for a mono blue color deck. Definitely going to be a commander fun card, and very powerful, probably unlimited as well. And then we have a very cool land cycle that I'm not going to name them. I've seen everything from reveal lands, peak lands, as in P-E-E-K, taking a peak. But the idea is that it comes into play if you reveal a forest or plains, or if you reveal one of 2 kinds of lands from your hand, it comes into play untapped. Otherwise, it comes into play tapped. Seems very fun, pretty powerful. It's like the ones that come into play and you have to have on the battlefield one of the 2, otherwise it's play tapped. This is a slightly weaker version and still very cool. I think I like the design, and they feel very balanced. Then we got a bunch more cards here to go. We got a Call the Bloodline, 2 for an enchantment. 1 discarded card, get a 1/1 with lifelink onto the battlefield. You can only do it once a turn, but this is pretty much for limited. It enables madness and gives you a consistent source of vampires. If you remember, there's a card called Bitter Blossom. This isn't Bitter Blossom, but it's pretty good for limited. Ovenwall Mysteries. It's a boring enchantment that is card advantage in green, but takes a lot to make it work. Not that great. Tireless Tracker, however, is awesome. 3 for a 3/2, already solid. Whenever a land comes into play, investigate. Card advantage on green, give me that. And whenever you sack a clue, it gets more powerful. Really powerful. Very likely to see constructive play, I think, and a monster in limited to deal with. It's pure advantage in green. Sin Prodder is 3 for a 3/2 menace. Think of your upkeep, reveal top card, and your opponent may have it put in your graveyard. If they do, it deals damage to the player equal to the card's mana cost. Otherwise, you draw. So it's 3 for a 3/2 menace with a constant draw, or they take a ton of damage. Wow. Very, very strong curve card. Very devilish, too. Awesome. Invocation of Traft is guys sustain Traft on a creature, which is fun flavor. Very powerful for limited, of course. I don't know how good it's going to be outside of that. Nahiri Machinations is really boring, but could be powerful if you drop a turn 2 and then you get more powerful creatures later in the game. It could make or break the tide. And last up is the Raven Gargoyle. It's 1 for a 2/2 defender, which is okay, I guess, in limited. And then for 6, it transforms into a 4/2 flyer. It seems really boring and bland. Maybe in limited it could do something. That's about it. So I know we got a lot we went through today, and looking forward to hearing what you guys think down below in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, please tap the like button. If you're new to the channel, check in and subscribe. As always, Roxybox and 90 signing out. I'll see you guys next time.